It is that 9:30. We've hit the time to start our meeting. So welcome to the council meeting of February the 9th, 2022. In order to ensure the meeting runs as smoothly as possible, I'd like to remind council and presenters of a few housekeeping items. In order to minimize background noise, I ask that you mute your microphones unless you are speaking to an item. As a courtesy to those watching or listening from home, please introduce yourself prior to speaking. In order to ensure quorum is maintained at all times, I ask that members of council advise the deputy clerk if they are leaving the meeting. In the event of technical difficulties, the meeting will be temporarily stopped to deal with the issue. This agenda contains one closed session item. Live streaming will cease during that period and will restart following closed session. And I'll now ask the clerk to take attendance.
Thank you, Warden Martin. Deputy Warden Talbot.
Present.
Councillor Komisky.
Present.
Councillor Mayberry.
Present.
Councillor McKay.
Present.
Councillor Mullner.
Present.
Councillor Peterson.
Present.
Councillor Ryan.
Present.
Councillor Tate.
Present.
Councillor Birch is absent. Alternate Councillor Lauder.
Present.
Thank you. Moving on to staff. Ben Adley.
Present.
Lynn Buchner.
Present.
Mark Dagger.
Present.
Michael Dubin.
Present.
Gord Huff.
Present.
Lisa Lanthier.
Present.
David Simpson.
Present.
Amy Smith. Amy, are you there?
Present.
Oh, there she is.
Thank you.
Present.
So, and we got you, Amy. So we'll move right along then. And I believe Councillor Lauder, you have the motion to approve the agenda.
Yes, moved by myself, Councillor Lauder, seconded by Councillor Tate. Resolved that the agenda be approved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I will call the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? That brings us down to item number 4, and that is the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. And Councillor Tate, I believe you have that one.
Yeah, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Komisky. Resolved that the council minutes of January 26, 2022 be adopted.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried as well. We have no public meetings, no delegations, presentations, or considerations, so we drop right down into item number 7, which is consideration of correspondence, and I believe Councillor Komisky, you have that.
Thank you very much, Warden. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ryan. Resolved that correspondence item 7.1 on the open meeting agenda of February 9th, 2022 be received as information.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing no hands, I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. It brings us down to reports from departments, which is item number 8 on the agenda. And I believe, again, Councillor Komisky, you have that.
Yes, and thank you again, Warden. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ryan. Resolved that the recommendation contained in report number CAO 2022-02 titled 2021 Annual Progress Report 10-Year Shelter Plan be adopted.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from any of the members of council with regards to the report? Rebecca Smith is online to answer any questions, and Councillor Mayberry, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Warden Martin. No real question on the report. It is what it is, and I thank staff for it. My question would be maybe to Rebecca or to Michael. Is it time for us to reconsider our 10-year plan as we go into 2022 to see if we can do better than we have in the past? And I don't mean, maybe we need to rejig our goals for the future. So I'm just wondering what staff would think to that idea.
Rebecca?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just Councillor Mayberry. So we are in the process, and I did note it in the report, of initiating a housing master plan, and I actually have interviews today. So we will be choosing a consultant to start that plan. That plan essentially will identify the gaps along the housing continuum, really to assist us in basically creating a new baseline standard for units each year. And of course, that does come with some financial considerations as well. So once the outcomes of that plan come out, we will be able to update our 10-year shelter plan. It is a 10-year plan, and our last review is in 2019. So I am looking at updating those targets anyways, and that will probably start near the end of the year.
I have Councillor Molnar and then Councillor Ryan. So Councillor Molnar.
Thanks, Mr. Warden, and thanks, Councillor Mayberry. That was my original question in analyzing the report. That there's great work that has been done, but based on all the pressures and circumstances, there is obviously so much more that needs to be done, and perhaps escalating targets will be a part of that. I would like to recognize both Rebecca and Lisa. Our own municipality has advanced the priority of both affordable and attainable housing in our recently adopted community strategic plan. Obviously, the great work of these two ladies from Human Services are providing background information, ideas, and recommendations to our local advisory committee that we're advancing on and have invested in our 2022 business plan and budget. The question that I would ask is related to recent communications and an update at the recent Roma conference by Minister Clark regarding housing initiatives in the province. The Premier and Minister Clark met with quote unquote large urban mayors. His comments at this Mr. Clark's comments at Rural Ontario conference were that one size does not fit all. And we're also aware that there's been reference to the Rural Housing Affordability Roundtable. I'm not, have access to that other than information streams. I'm wondering, has the County of Oxford been directly invited to that table? And how have we most recently, either through delegations or correspondence, been able to activate some of the concerns and opportunities that we've highlighted here at Council recently?
I can comment on that if you don't mind, Councillor Molnar, but yes, I was involved with a roundtable that was held, and it was the roundtable that was held with the housing symposium. And I somehow or other got lumped in with the large city mayors, which isn't a big deal. But at the same point in time, all the issues raised are issues that we are dealing with here in Oxford County. And I do know that at the one, I've been to so many meetings, it's hard to keep them all straight, but I do know that Minister Clark did recognize Oxford County at one of those meetings and what we have been doing with our housing initiatives. So, I mean, that was good news to hear as well, that at least the minister is recognizing what is going on in Oxford County as well. And I don't know if Michael has anything to add to that as far as the symposiums or not. Do you, Michael?
No, I don't at this point.
Okay, thank you. Follow up then, Councillor Muller?
Real brief follow-up relative to the letter we would have, heads of councils would have received, including the warden, dated the 7th of February, regarding the opportunity to make comment regarding housing supply in the province of Ontario on or before the 15th of February. Is it the intent of Oxford County Council to make comment, and would the exposure that either the warden or senior leadership have had to date be included as reference material in the updated reports coming from Human Services?
So Rebecca or Lisa, who would we go to for that response to Councillor Molnar's question? I will open it to either one of you, because you're both more knowledgeable than I am on that. but I'm quite sure we will be making a submission, but I would like to hear from you personally. Rebecca?
Through Mr. Warden, of course, we can facilitate some comments from council. Certainly, staff are in the process of reviewing the report that did come out from the minister just a little while ago. So, of course, any feedback we can facilitate that through.
Thank you. Is that all, Councillor Muller? Okay, then Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Warden. So first, I just want to fully support the comments of Councillors Mayberry and Molnar on this report. Secondly, I want to thank staff for this excellent report. As has been said, it's you know, it is what it is. We know that it's not good enough. Largely, we know that it's not good enough because our staff, as well as our residents, have told us that it's not good enough. And I particularly want to thank staff for that, in that this report makes that very clear, that it's not doing enough and that we need to do more. But also, I think a key thing to me is that staff took this as a legislative requirement of the province, but have looked at it much more broadly and much more long-term than the province requires us to. And as Rebecca pointed out, is already working on developing a housing supply strategy that is broader than what is required by this. And I think, you know, several councillors here in the past year or more, Councillor Comiskey in particular, have pointed out that, you know, we desperately need to do more on housing, and we need to have a broader view than some of the, you know, working inside some of the tick boxes of what we do. And I think this report and that housing supply strategy is definitely going in that direction. So just wanted to express my thanks to staff and support for that broader and longer term view than what's required legislatively, because what's required by our residents is more than that. So just very encouraging of the direction this report is taking.
Thank you. Maybe I'm over optimistic, but I like to celebrate even the smallest victories and when we get an opportunity. And yes, it's maybe not enough, but at the same point in time, with the environment that we have been living in, if you look at what we have done in the last year as far as the housing and homelessness, I think staff and council do deserve a little bit of credit for that. That it's quite an undertaking, and we all know that it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a long-term plan. And I thank staff for all their hard work as well in bringing that forward. So Michael, you have a comment?
Yeah, if I may, thank you, Warden. Just real quickly, and it really goes back to Councillor Mayberry's question or comment. When we do engage the consultant, one of the things we'll make sure the consultant does to build into their work plan is an opportunity to speak to individual councillors. So if you have any thoughts on housing or any gaps, and to the Councillor Mayberry's comment, you know, things have changed over the last little while. We'll make sure that councillors are on the list of stakeholders that we expect the consultants to converse with. I think it'll probably be done on an individual basis as opposed to a group basis. And then the consultant will obviously come back to council as a whole before anything new is adopted. So I just wanted to let council know that you'll have the opportunity to give some feedback to the consultant once we engage them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments from any of the members of council? Seeing no hands, I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried as well. And that brings us down into our Public Works report, which is item 8.2. And Councillor Ryan, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by Ryan, seconded by Molnar. Resolved that the recommendation contained in report number PW 2022-03, titled Woodingford Lodge Domestic Water Booster System Replacement, be adopted.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of council for that report? Seeing no hands, I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. Brings us down then to item 8.3 under corporate services, and that's our investment activity report. And Councillor Molnar, you have that resolution.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. As moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Peterson, resolved that the recommendation contained in report Corporate Services 2022-04, titled Investment Activity Report and Policy Review 2021, be adopted.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments? Don't see any, so I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried as well then. Brings us down to item 8.3.2. That's council remuneration, and Councillor Muller, you have that one as well, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Peterson. Result of the recommendation contained in Corporate Services Report 2022-05 titled Council Remuneration and Expenses 2021 be adopted.
Thank you. Are there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. Down to 8.3.3, the Oxford Legacy Fund, and Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by Peterson, second by Mulder. Resolved that recommendation contained in report number CS 2022-06 titled Future Oxford Legacy Fund Partnership Agreement Renewal be adopted.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councillor Molnar.
Yeah, real briefly, thanks for the update, and not just from this, but the other work that Community Futures Oxford is doing to assist businesses and stakeholders through the pandemic. In the implementation points, and this is not new information, this is an update, and then moving forward in the future. The contribution amount is now at $100,000. But the administration, management, etc. Costs are forwarded at $45,000. What does that $45,000 reference as far as the contribution, the responsibilities of that contribution relative to an investment of $100,000? I guess I'm looking for clarity that it's not a $45,000 expense to distribute $100,000, and that it's got a greater value into a larger portfolio.
I'm going to ask, Lynn, are you there? I'm going to say it's to help with administrative services, but that encompasses several things. So I'll let our Director of Corporate Services respond if she will.
Thank you, Warden. Through to Councillor Molnar's question. Yes, it does have a broader exposure other than administrative costs and management of the funds. Loan portfolio costs are involved in that as well. But another benefit of this program, of this partnership, is the expertise that Community Futures Oxford has in terms of guidance and training and all of that, the supports that it provides for these small businesses that come in, looking for loans and investments into their business to get them off the ground and to get them moving. So, it's all of the supports that organization has are more than just loaning money. So I think that, they do give them long-term sustainability because they set them up for success and make sure that they're going to be able to pay that money back. So I think there's long-term benefits over that that's involved in that $45,000.
Okay, thank you, Director. And Councillor Molnar again?
Yeah, no, that I think appropriately, accurately answers my question and reinforces, I think, to the public as well, is that the investment we're not investing $45K to distribute $100K. That wouldn't ultimately be very responsible utilization of resources, but the director has highlighted where those resources are ultimately going, and I appreciate that. I'll continue to support the program.
Are there any other questions or comments from any members of council? Seeing none, I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Those opposed, if any? That motion is carried. And that brings us down to item 8.3.4, a County of Oxford Procedural Bylaw Amendment. And Councillor Peterson, I believe you have that one as well.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by Peterson, second by Mulder. Resolved that recommendations contained in report number CS-2022-07 titled County of Oxford Procedure Bylaw Amendments be adopted.
This is just to align our procedural bylaw with the new provincial standards that are coming out this fall after the municipal election and the recognition of dates, change dates. So is there any further, Councillor Molnar?
Yeah, sorry, just confirmation of when the third reading of this particular procedural bylaw to amend that section will be read.
At the end of the meeting.
Through the warden to Councillor Molnar, that would be coming forward at the February 23rd meeting, Council.
Okay, now it's relative to other items on our agenda today. And I would consider that appropriate, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussions or comments or questions? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. Brings us to there's unfinished business, and then item number 10 is motions, and I believe Councillor Tate, do you have a mover for your motion?
Yes, I'm the mover and Councillor Molnar's seconder. Resolve that section 9.1.2 of the procedure bylaw be amended as follows. 9.1.2, notwithstanding section 9.1.1, during council's review and consideration of annual business plans and budgets, amending motions may be tabled in writing and debated without previous notice at the budget meeting specifically intended for budget date. The clerk will ensure that any budget motions received in advance of notice of motion are printed in full on the agenda for the meeting when debate is scheduled to occur.
Do you care to make comment on that?
Yes, and I didn't want this to be a contentious issue. They're just, I just want to give a couple examples. This year, obviously, Councillor Molnar had a death in the family, so he was unable to be at a couple meetings. Information was brought forward to him when he was off. So that's just an example, you know, new information ended up, we did listen to it and it did change the budget. And a couple years ago, just through discussion, there were some changes made to the budget, but on the day that we were going to do it, I believe Councillor Peterson made the motion that staff was to go back and cut the budget and then to come back. Just, you know, in conversation and with discussion on issues, there's sometimes new information comes up, or even in just for example, talking to Councillor Ryan last night, you know, you do all your homework, you do your research, but then in discussion, something new may come up. Now, I will stress that, yes, I strongly believe that council should have all their budget motions in as early as possible so staff can fully see them. So if they have, you know, they want to argue that, you know, if you're taking something out, why they want it in. And for all of council to see and for the public. But I think it's really, really important that we have a chance that when something comes up, we are able to debate it. And it hasn't been on the agenda. Otherwise, you know, everything's wrapped up and it's ready to go. And like I said, I don't want this to be a contentious issue, but I think it's really important we have that mechanism that if new information comes forward, that you're able to discuss it, because you have no idea sometimes what goes on in somebody's personal life and they can't make the meeting, or if something comes up. That's it. And can I have a recorded vote too, please?
Thank you very much, Councillor Tate. Is there any further discussion? Any other discussion? Councillor Mayberry.
Mr. Warden, since this is actually not going to impact this council, I would question why we would make a decision today on it, and therefore I would move that we table the motion until the first regular council meeting on November 23rd, 2022.
So do you have a seconder for a tabling motion? Councillor Ryan? Councillor Ryan, you second the motion, is it?
I do, yes. Thank you, Warden.
So there's no discussion on a tabling motion. So Councillor Tate has asked for a recorded vote. So does that apply to the tabling motion as well, Madam Clerk?
No, I don't.
No, okay then. So we'll call for the vote to table.
Can I have a recorded vote on the table motion, please?
Now we have a recorded vote request.
We're voting on whether or not to table the amendment to section 9.1.2 of the procedure bylaw until the regular meeting of November 23rd, 2022. Councillor Mayberry.
Yes.
Councillor Molnar.
Excuse me, no.
Councillor Ryan.
Yes.
Councillor McKay.
Yes.
Councillor Peterson.
No.
Warden Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Lauder,
No.
Deputy Warden Talbot,
Yes.
Counselor Komisky,
You were on mute, Counselor.
I apologize. Yes.
you voted yes?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. Counselor Tate,
No.
motion to table carries 6-4.
The motion carried at 6-4. The motion is tabled. Counselor Muller?
Yeah, just certainly respecting the resolution and the decision, just point of order. There was a date that was referenced, and I would look for clarification that a motion to table does not, and actually doesn't provide for a particular date. So I'm satisfied on the concept and the fact that council endorsed the mover and seconder, but I'd be concerned that a date was attached to that procedurally if we're going to actually dive into procedures to that depth.
Madam Clerk, could you comment on that?
Through the warden to Counselor Muller.
And be at times amongst some individuals biased towards the City of London. I think the board has made great strides away from that direction recently, but I think some of the trustees are basically asking for support from the counties. Middlesex County has already passed a resolution. I think it's identical to this, except in who it's distributed to at the bottom. I'm anticipating Elgin will do the same. So just asking for that support here, essentially for the status quo and not diminished representation for the counties within the Thames Valley District School Board. Thanks, Warden.
Thank you very much. Are there any other discussion from any members of council? I'm not seeing any. I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. There are no notices of motion. New business inquiries and comments. Just have this one item that the province is expected to lift capacity limits where proof of vaccination is required effective February the 21st. If this is the case, I expect that the next council meeting to be a hybrid style, which would allow members to attend in person in the council chamber or online, depending on their comfort levels. And I guess stay tuned as the situation, as everything else we've dealt with in the last 2.5 years, is subject to change depending on numbers and provincial legislation. So I'll just throw that in there and to let everybody know right now we're looking at a hybrid meeting for February, but who knows what may happen between now and then. That will bring us down to closed session, I believe, and Councillor Muller, you have that motion?
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Just move by myself, seconded by Councillor Mayberry. Resolve that council rise, go into a closed session to consider report Public Works closed session 2022-04 regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the county or local board.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Those opposed, if any? That motion is carried. And this now brings us to closed session portion of the meeting, for which live streaming will cease until we reconvene in open session. So with that, Matt, will you let us know when we are in closed?
Yes, Warden, I'll just need a minute.
Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. That brings us down to bylaws and Deputy Warden Talbot.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lauder. Resolved that the following bylaws be now read a first and second time, 6411-2022 to 6413-2022 inclusive.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing no discussion, I will call for the vote then. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. That brings us down to the third reading, and I believe Deputy Warden Talbot, you have that one as well.
Thank you, Warden. Moved by myself and seconded by Counselor Lauder. Resolved that the following bylaws be now given third and final reading, 64-11-2022 to 64-13-2022 inclusive.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. That brings us down to item 16, which is an adjournment, and Councillor Komisky. Motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned, and thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day, and